afternoon. Today I'll be presenting to the docs and beyond. Thank you so much, Security Board community, for giving me this opportunity to present my talk. A little bit about who am I. I am a hacker, a bounty hunter, and boring documentation leader. I'm also ranked top 200 on the bug crowd, and a couple of times I was the MVP, and I recently crossed $100,000 on bug crowd. I'm currently participating in Hackathon AWC, and I have participated in bug crowd Hacker Cup multiple times. That was about me. Now let's get to today's summary. Today's talk is about how developer documentation can be proven advantages for attackers or hackers to exploit critical vulnerabilities. Our talk has 4 parts. First is an access vulnerability or cross-site scripting issue. This is a story of bad prevention filters and really questionable blacklisting. Second is a Slack misconfiguration, which I use to leverage PI and more. Third one is one of my favorites, that is talking about a CMS called Adobe Experience Manager, or AEMs in short form, and how to coordinate with query vendors. And finally, we have a Swagger issue, which helped me exploit a local file read-write-delete vulnerability with some other cool friends. Now, how many of you are developers here? Cool. So you must be understanding what is developer documentation, how it works. For those who don't know, developer documentation is any material that is used to describe, explain, or instruct regarding any attributes or properties of an object. Like, it basically explains what this feature or function does and how it works. So you must be wondering who uses docs anyway, why learn about it. These are a few examples. We have Adobe, Uber, Google Cloud, Canva, Shopify, Upwork. They all use developer documentation in some way or other. More like, who does it? Simple Google search will reveal about these many results. So, you can understand how critical a developer documentation is. Why docs and what is the need of developer documentation? So docs come in all shapes and sizes, but the core concept of it is the same. Firstly is helping the readers, be it developers or end users, to understand how a piece of functionality or code works. Second is it's a place of solid reference to look back upon. Like, let's say something has been updated or deleted or new features has been added. It is a place of solid reference. Third is constant updates on new features and releases. You will get constant updates and notifications even when a new feature is released. And finally, we have community discussions or posts. You have seen a lot of documentation or community forums where users talk about how a feature works, or maybe give insights into an existing one or upcoming one. With that being said, let's go over to first vulnerability that we'll be discussing about today. This was a product-based company which had a standard documentation. Going over through this standard documentation, we found something. How many of you have seen something like this before while developing or maybe hacking? Rich text editor, anyone? Okay, no worries. So this is a rich text editor, or what you see is what you get later. Here you can type in something, and you can use something like bold or italic, and it will generate HTML code and render it accordingly. So let's see what the documentation has to say about this. The documentation says standard HTML tags are generally supported, but for security reasons, HTML tags, the following HTML tags and JavaScript events are not permitted. So these are the HTML tags that were not allowed in this rich text editor. The tags include script, form, input, button, and SVG. Because any idea why these tags may be blacklisted? Anyone? Okay, no worries. These tags can be associated with cross-site scripting issues. That's why maybe the developer thought, okay, let's block these. And also, any JavaScript event beginning with on was blocked, like on click, on load, on change, on focus, etc. Okay, so what are blacklists, you may ask? So blacklists are pre-curated entity lists to prevent access to. Like they are something that the application doesn't want you to access. But what is the problem with blacklists? The problem with blacklists is that there might be at least one other entity that is left out. In this case, the developer here did not concern about the anchor tag or iframe tag, both of which can be used for escalating or finding excessive issues. And going over to the JavaScript events, they block the anything event, anything beginning with on, but you can essentially execute JavaScript with just by supplying a JavaScript URL. Now let's go over to the process of finding this vulnerability. Simple test is an anchor tag. Simply anchor tag, nothing in the content. Passed. Now let's try to put in an href, that is the URL value. When we put an href that is direct to foo.com, it is passed and the tag gets created. Now let's try to build an XSS payload. First thing we will try is putting in a JavaScript is to test payload that works. But when we put JavaScript alert1, the app blocked it. Now finally, after a few hours of trying, I was able to come to this payload, that is Java and unhash99 RIPT alert document.domain, and this miraculously worked. But how many, you may ask? Enter HTML entities. What are HTML entities? They are a method to display reserved HTML characters. Like, let's say you wanna print C, A, B, C, D, E, or anything that is in your keyboard. HTML entities can be used in place of that character directly. The application here blocked the term JavaScript. So what I did was just replace the letter C here into its corresponding HTML entity, that is unhash99. The semicolon is optional. The app then parsed it into the word JavaScript and hereby classically triggering our classic alert box. That was it. Now over to the next issue. This was yet another product-based company that I was hunting on. They had a webinar to interact with new potential customers and potentially introduce them to their product. Now, whenever you signed up to this webinar, you will receive an automated Slack invite. Like, now what could go wrong with a Slack invite? The problem was they were inviting in their main Slack instance. Now, with Slack comes misconfigurations. Misconfiguration is any incorrect configuration of system that can lead to security issues. Define euphoria, the feeling of extreme joy. When I receive an email saying, join your team on Slack, redacted at foo.io has invited you to their workspace as a guest. I had guest permissions only, but that was reserved for the demo, but who cares? Moving on. Contrary to what one might think, Slack isn't secure by default. One such misconfig is allowing any or all members to allow or restrict posting in the channel. By default, all members can use this, but admins can configure it to only admins. What do I mean by that? Any normal user in the Slack channel could manage posting permissions, like they could disallow anyone from posting in the channel and only allow themselves from posting in it. This clearly highlights the necessity of granular level access controls in an organization. This was me after being able to exploit this issue. But wait, there's more. Slack exposes a REST API endpoint with which one could easily dump names, emails, phone numbers, and in some cases addresses too. This is called personally identifiable information or PII. What are the steps to reproduce this issue, you may ask? First is making a post request to API/users.list, that is /REST API. Then you will receive a JSON response containing all the results. In my case, it was a 7.7 MB file of JSON with tons of PII. Now, we have this huge chunk of data. How do we make sense of it? How many people here know about JQ? JQ in Linux? Cool. So JQ here can easily help us make sense of this data. We can pass in a regex by using the R flag that would help us, structure the data and extract information from it. Here I have passed the regex to get the member's name, email, and phone number. This regex was done with the help of my friend, Debangush. Yeah. So with this suite command, I was able to exfiltrate 3.5 thousand different user data, and this is the volume of it. We have phone number, Skype, real name, display name, email, and addresses as well. For the demo, I have just shown my address and a redacted one. What is the fix now? The fix is by default member email addresses are displayed in the Slack profile, but you as an admin can choose to configure to not display this setting to anyone at all. Now to the third part of this talk. How many of you know about AMs or Adobe Experience Manager? No worries. So, if you are a bug bounty hunter or want to be one, I highly recommend you to read more about this CMS that is called AM, because it is in use by a lot of companies from Tesla to Microsoft to MasterCard. Any big company you can name off that is a bit old, they use AMs. So this is why you should dig a bit deeper into AMs or try to follow some research. This will give you an edge as a bug bounty hunter to avoid maybe duplicates or find some cool research of your own that you can present. Okay, now what is Query Builder? Query Builder is a tool or framework used in AM that with which we can write simple or efficient queries. It uses JCR XPath query engine and a query is in a key value form. Now Query Builder is present in different shapes and sizes. That is, it is present as querybuilder.json, json.servlet, feed and feed.servlet. These are few ways in which you can find Query Builder exposed. Now let's start by debugging a normal Query Builder path. This is how a Query Builder API looks like. First we have the domain, followed by the path to Query Builder API and the stuff you want to exfiltrate. But real world instances look somewhat like the below. First we have domain followed by multiple slashes to fool the dispatcher, or essentially WAF of AM, that is the first layer of defense. We have the path to Query Builder API and then random extensions and followed by the stuff you want to exfiltrate. Let's take a detour on dispatcher and AM. You might have seen these slashes and wondering like why are we using multiple extensions in the same URL. So this is a bit about that. Dispatcher is basically AM's WAF. But for the definition, it's a caching or load balancing tool that can be used in conjunction with the enterprise class web server. Now these are some excerpts from the dispatcher.any policy. It is basically a rule set that you can define when configuring AMs. You can use both allow and deny rules to allow or deny access to certain files or folders. In this situation, the deny rule is set to index.html. So any person or normal user cannot access index.html in the server. And here we have the allow rule, which is allowed for the var directory. Any files or folders under the var directory will be accessible. I guess now it's clear that what role the multiple slashes and the allowed extensions play. We use this extension because maybe .json is blocked, but CSS is harmless, right? Or .gif is harmless, right? So we can just append .gif to access this Query Builder and domain. Now back to Query Builder and time to talk about the actual stuff. This was enough for me to land multiple P1 bounties. Unauthenticated access to AM Query Builder leads to information disclosure. Now let's talk about let's build queries manually, and we don't have to rely on nuclei output again. Because let's be honest, I see there's a nuclei template that rates query builder as medium, but you can definitely get critical with that. First we have type equals to entities to file. This is the same for displaying files that are present in a directory or in the application. Then we have type equals to entities to folder. This is used for displaying folders and CQ is to page for displaying pages. Full text equals to string. With full text equals to string, you can search for any string in the entire web application. Let's say you want to search for secret. Then you can supply the string full text equals to secret and it will search the entire web application for the word secret. Same with admin or password or anything else. Next we have node name equals star.zip. You can replace this with any extensions. Let's say node name equals to star.txt. This will list all the txt files that are in the application. And we have node name equals to jar that will list jar files. Now we have path equals to /foo. You can replace it with anything like etc or var or any internal paths that you want to run the search upon. We have apps, home, var, corp, etc. And next we have p.limit equals to n being the number of results you want to extract. Sometimes when exfiltrating information from query builder, what happens is the information exposed is too large. So to minimize the load on the server and making sure that we still get the results, we can use p.limit to limit the extended queries to certain extent. Now maybe you want to find recently modified items. Use past in order by equals at JCR content /CQ last modified. This would give you the recently modified items in the application. Similarly, we have property equals to, let's say you want to search stuff created by a certain user. For that we have property equals JCR created by a property of value equals to admin. This would essentially give you the entries that are created by the admin user, because sometimes admin user creates sensitive files and we can get good bounties with that. You also have property equals JCR is to title and property.value equals secret. So any file that would contain secret in its heading or title in the AEM web application, you would get that. Maybe you want to search out multiple paths, then we can use a grouping query. We can simply use group.1, that is the first one, underscore path equals /apps. This is the first path that the application will be searching, and we use an ampersand, and then we use group.2 underscore path equals to /var and group.p.r equals to true. This would search in two directories, that is var and /apps. Let's see stuff in action. This is how query builder looks like and the output it gives. Here we have domain /whenQueryBuilder.json.css to bypass it. Then we run if full text equals to query. Here we searched about admin. For admin we got 15 results, and searching about AEMs gave us about 49 results in that application. So any files that had AEM in their text or title would get disclosed. Similarly, we can search for full text equals secret, that any files that contain secret in their body or file name will get disclosed. Next is full text equals password, and as you can see, we have disclosed a few files that contain password somewhere or the other. Next, we have this is a really cool way to search for all the files and folders and any included files in that. Here we have path equals /etc, that is the etc directory, such as the etc directory, and node name equals star.html. So this would search the etc directory for all the HTML files that are present in the web application. For example, we have index.html and historyframe.html here. Now, combining queries for better results. This won't always work, but as a learning, you can take it. Let's say we have these two queries. The first one is type equals entities to file, that is files in the etc directory, and node name equals star.txt. This is for searching for txt files in etc directory. And the second one is mostly similar. It is searching for HTML files in etc directory. So maybe you want to group this to search both TXT and HTML together. For that we can use the grouping query. Path will remain same and the type will remain same because we are searching files and under HC directory. Here because the grouping query, group.1 underscore node name, which is the query, equals star.txt, and group.2 underscore node name is star.html. This would give you the output of txt files and HTML files that are present in the HC directory. Cool. Now we are approaching the final vulnerability that I'm going to be talking about today. How many of you guys know about local file read or local file inclusion? Guys, you have cybersecurity, you must know about local file inclusion. So with local file inclusion, we can disclose the contents of internal files, that be HC password or any internal files that can contain credentials. This was me after finding this vulnerability. Unauthorized access to Swagger API leads to file upload in internal directories. Just look at the severity of this issue. File upload in internal directories, folder creation, and arbitrary file deletion with code execution potential. Crazy file. Now let's go over the workflow of finding this vulnerability. First we had a while scope program. How many of you guys know what a while scope or while scope program is? Very few hands, but okay. So while scope program is basically a kind of bug bounty program where the scope is defined to star.example.com. Example.com being the company, and this allows you to find and report vulnerabilities in any subdomains that are present in example.com. Now, how many of you guys know about Shodan? Cool, better. Shodan is a search engine that you can give queries and it would search the entire internet for the occurrence of any queries. For example, here is the SSL query. Here we pass it SSL is to target. Let's say in place of target we use security mode, so it would list all the assets of security mode that are available on the internet. Using this query we found an IP pointing to sub.sub.sub.sub.target.com. This was a 4th level subdomain. This was I was able to discover it only by the help of Shodan. Now what lives on this subdomain was a developer admin panel that was in development. It was an admin panel in development, but it was non-functional. It did not have any exploitable functionality to access. So I did what a normal hacker would do, just go to the app.js, that is the code behind running this web application that you can actually see. And upon analyzing this app.js, I found an endpoint. The endpoint was TMS API script /file and path equals foo. Classic hacker instinct. What's the first thing you do when you see a path parameter? LFI, right? That's what I did, and you guys know the rest. What is about to happen? But you're in for a surprise. TMS API scripts file path equals // password, and boom, you have the password file disclosed as a result. A code by Reservoir says live love local file inclusion. This shows my love for local file inclusion vulnerabilities and how awesome of a bug class it is. Now, there is this path /TMS. Something seemed off about it, like it's not a generic path like API viewer, it's something different. So what I did was brute force it. I placed the brute force upon /TMS and searched for 200 OK responses, and using the search I was able to find Swagger UI exposed. How many of you know about Swagger UI? Cool. So Swagger UI is a REST. It is a way of documenting REST API calls that are available on the website, but in a GUI format. It makes it, number one, easy to implement in the back end, and second of all, end user operation. Um, Please take note that exposed Swagger UI is not by itself a vulnerability. Maybe you can do something with that, or else you have an XSL issue with that. But by itself, it's not a security vulnerability. Every function in the Swagger API has different calls that have assigned different methods to perform different tasks. Let's say we have get request to perform, to fetch some data, post to upload some data, and delete to delete the uploaded data. It also shows the name, description, and parameters that are required in the API call. It also shows the resulting responses for the API call, that is whether it was a 200 OK, 401, 403, 404, etc. As of today, as of recording this talk, we have around 40,000 public Swagger instances that are available via Shodan, as per Shodan. That is a huge number, and it highlights on how we should be, as an organization, we should care more about security and not leave Swagger instances exposed. Now this is where the fun begins. API is hiding in plain sight. This is the Swagger instance that was exposed, and the first 5 API responses didn't have anything to do with the vulnerability, but the 6th one, the script control one, is where the vulnerability existed. This is the perfect definition of CRUD. CRUD makes a create, update, delete, but here it is in the context of a local file inclusion. We have API script /file that is used for reading files normally, but here we can read system files. Post is for creating and updating files, and delete is for deleting the files found. And this is why you should not leave sensitive APIs unauthenticated. This allowed me to create any file with any content type extensions with in any desired folder like etc, bin, home, dev, any directory, any internal directory. I could create local files, and the file gets created in the desired folder. So we not only have local file inclusion, but we can create local files in any local directory, and we can also delete it. While testing this issue, I mistakenly deleted the HC password. You should not do that anyway. But I had it saved, and I don't know what happened on the back end, but I got a bounty about it. Now we have another issue, small one. This is missing CORS policy. Anyone knows about CORS? CORS? Cool. So CORS is cross-origin resource sharing. A simple way to test for this kind of vulnerabilities is passing in an arbitrary origin header. And if we get it reflected in the access control allow origin header, and we have the access control allow credentials set to true, then it is vulnerable to CORS. This is a simple exploit that I use to exploit this issue. We have a function called CORS, and it creates an XHR, this is an XML HTTP request, to this endpoint, that is vulnerable.app/TMS API script/any valid path. And then we use with credentials equals to true. This would send any cookies that would be necessary in this exploit. And then just clicking on exploit would give us the result of the response. That brings us to almost the end of this talk. I have a few takeaways that for developers, firstly, blacklist aren't always foolproof, so you might want to consider a little more about the security while building a blacklist, be it for an SSRF or something else. Second is focus on granular level access control issues, because human element in an organization is very error prone. Third is very important, while testing any CMS, be it AEMs or WordPress or anything else, read all the public documentation which is available to better understand how it works. So this brings me to the end of this talk today. I want to thank everyone at Security Board community for giving me this opportunity. And For any queries, you can dox me at DK999 on Twitter. And any questions? Any questions, everyone?